everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Super Scrubby. We originally wrote this pattern a few years ago and we just did it in this one size. And I'm going to also explain how to make it in a bigger size. The smaller size measures about 6 by 6 and the bigger size measures about 8 by 8. And the truth is, if you want it even bigger, I'll explain that to you also. Now, this can be made with any kind of scrubby yarn or cotton yarn or a combination. And I'll explain that to you also in just a minute when we start discussing yarns. Now, this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find the blog link down in the notes underneath this video. Okay, let's talk yarn. There are lots of different ways that you can make this scrubby and with lots of different yarns. These are the yarns that I recommend. If you're going to make a scrubby with the scrubby yarn in it, you're going to be using one strand of scrubby and one strand of cotton. And here are some great choices of some scrubby yarn. Here's the Scrubby Sparkle from Red Heart, Scrubby Cotton, and then the regular scrubby, which is a polyester. They all work great. And another choice is the Yarn Bee Scrubology from Hobby Lobby. Now, I know there are some other brands of yarn that make scrubby yarns as well, and any of those would work for this project. And because this scrubby is made using one strand of scrubby and one strand of cotton yarn, here are some cotton choices that work great. Here's the Crafter's Cotton, that's Hobby Lobby, Peaches and Cream, Sugar and Cream, and even the Premier Cotton works great. And to make a scrubby like this, no matter what size, whether you make it the small or the large, it's made with one strand of cotton and one strand of scrubby. But if you don't want it to have the scrubby in it, you can also make it with 2 strands of any cotton yarn. Because we're using 2 strands, whether it's scrubby and cotton mix or 2 cottons, we're going to be using a J-hook today, and that's a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle to weave in those ends, and you'll need your scissors. And also you'll need one stitch marker, but if you don't have a stitch marker, we're just going to be marking that corner so we don't lose track of where this point or corner is. And you can use a different color of yarn, and I'll show you how to do that as well if you don't have a stitch marker. For the demonstration, I'm going to be using one strand of this cotton scrubby, and the color is called Tan. And I'm going to be using one strand of this Crafter's Secret cotton, and the color is called Neutral. If you've never crocheted with holding 2 strands together, it can be a little bit tricky, but once you do it, you'll think, oh, that was super easy. You hold the 2 strands together, and one thing you'll notice is as I'm crocheting, I'll sort of pull like this, and that will keep the 2 strands together. The main thing is not to let one droop over the other or become too tight. So you just have to watch that. Practice a little bit, but it'll come really easy for you. We're going to begin with a slip knot. And then we're going to chain 16 chains. There's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. The 16 chains is the loop at the top of our Super Scrubby. So we'll take that tail of yarn, wrap it over our hook, and pull it through that last loop. We're going to snug that down. There's our loop. Then we're going to make that stay knot so that our loop of 16 chains doesn't come undone. All right. Now we're going to stitch 16 single crochets over this loop. I'm going to put my tail of yarn over here and I'm going to stitch over it. So we'll go through the loop, pull up a loop, and just do a chain 1. And that's going to get us on top of our chain so that we can stitch over it. Alright, so we'll go through this loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. That's our single crochet. Now this can be just a little bit clumsy because we're working in this great big loop. But just take this part slow. This is the hardest part of this whole thing. The rest of this super scrubby is super easy. All right, let's see how many I've made so far. And we do this by counting these chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I need 6 more. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Almost tried to make a double crochet there. All right, so there's my 16. We want to make sure all of our loops are on the outside because sometimes they get twisted. And we'll go right in this first single crochet and join with the slip stitch. And just go ahead and chain 1. Now, if your end of your strings was long, you can go ahead and cut those off. And now you don't have to weave that in because it's already underneath where we stitched. All right. So we have 16 single crochets stitched around our chain of 16, and then we join back to our first single crochet. Now that we have our loop formed with our 16 single crochets, we're going to begin to make the body portion of our scrubby. So we're going to stitch a single crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in the next stitch we're going to single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. So we'll go in that next stitch and single crochet. We're going to chain 2 and single crochet in that same stitch. This is where the point begins to form. And so if you have a stitch marker, you're going to want to put that stitch marker right in that chain 2 space. That's going to help you find it each row. If you don't have a stitch marker, just grab another piece of yarn and stick it in that chain 2 space. And that will help you as you go along know where that chain 2 space is. Because as you're stitching, it's easy to lose it. All right, I don't even close mine. I just stick it in there. All right, now we're going to do the other side and stitch 1 single crochet in the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make sure my yarn's not getting loopy. We're going to chain 1 and then we'll turn. And this is the way that your row 2 should look. For row 3, we're going to place a single crochet in the 5 single crochets. Then in the chain 2 space, we'll do the single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then we'll stitch 5 single crochets. And so what we're going to be doing is increasing by 1 on each side for each row. All right, so we did our chain 1. We'll go right in that first single crochet and then in each across. And then that brings us to our chain 2 space. I'm going to take my stitch marker out, and in the chain 2 space I'm going to stitch a single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. Oops, got a little loop there. I'll do that again. It happens sometimes when you chain two. All right. There we go. There's my single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker back in that chain two space. There we go. And then I'll stitch one single crochet in the 5 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And here we have row 3, 5 single crochets plus our single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the chain 2 space. For row 4, we've stitched our chain 1. We're going to stitch a single crochet in each of the 6 stitches, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the chain 2 space, and then 1 single crochet in these 6 stitches on this side. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to take my stitch marker out so it's out of the way, and then in the chain 2 space we're stitching single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. There's my chain 2 space. I'll go ahead and put my stitch marker back in, and then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in the next 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go, and 6. Chain 1. And I think by now you're seeing how the pattern works. Like I said at the beginning, we're increasing by 1 on each row because we're adding the chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet at the point, and that increases 1 on each side, so each row is increasing by 2. We're ready for row 5. Row 5, we've increased by 1, so we're going to stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 single crochets, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the chain 2 space, and then 7 single crochets on this side. And I think by now you can see the pattern and see how easy it is to make this super scrubby. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we're to the chain 2 space, so we'll take our stitch marker out and we'll stitch single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. And then 1 single crochet in the next 7. My yarn's jumping around. Alright, there's 7. Chain 1. Make sure we put our stitch marker in our chain 2 space. So to make the small size, you're going to continue to repeat what we've been doing. Chain 1, turn, single crochet in each stitch, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the point, and then single crochet in each stitch, chain 1, turn, and you'll repeat this for 3 more rows, and then that will get you to the small size, which is a 6 by 6 inch scrubby. So repeat what we've been doing for 3 more rows. I've completed those 3 additional rows, which brings me up to row 8. And at row 8, you should have 11 single crochets with your chain 2 and 11 single crochets. And this is all the bigger you need to make it for the 6 by 6 size. And then we're going to add the trim. Now, if you want to make it bigger, you'll need to continue from row 8 to repeat for 5 more rows or up through row 13. And that's going to get you the 8 by 8 size, like this one that I've done with 2 strands of cotton. Now, this is an 8 by 8 inch scrubby. If you want to make it even bigger, just continue to repeat the pattern of doing the single crochets in each single crochet, and then in the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then single crochets back up. And you can continue to repeat that until the scrubby is as large as you would like it. I like the small size for doing pots and pans, scrubbing the ring around maybe the bathtub or the bathroom sink. They work great. But if I'm just doing basic dishes, I like the bigger size. So it's kind of up to you what you prefer. Once you have stitched your super scrubby as big as you would like it, we're going to add the trim. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the scrubby yarn and leave the cotton yarn still attached. We'll go ahead and chain 1. There we go. And turn. We're going to begin by stitching down to the chain 2 space. We'll put 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space and then back up. Okay, now we have this little tail from our scrubby yarns. We're just going to lay it there and we'll just single crochet over it. That'll also eliminate us having to weave that in later. And if you have a longer tail, you can always come back and weave it in again. So what I'm doing is I'm placing 1 single crochet in each single crochet, working down to that point. And if you made it bigger, of course you'll have more stitches than if you made it smaller. So we're just stitching 1 single crochet in each single crochet, working down to the chain 2 space. All right, here's the next stitch. A little bit snug. Here's my chain 2 space, so I'm going to stitch 1 and 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space, and then I'm going to work back up the side of my super scrubby. And again, the size of your scrubby will determine how many stitches that you have. Okay, now I've reached this corner and I'm going to single crochet up the side, and of course we don't have stitches here. So what we'll do is we'll just evenly single crochet, trying to work in the side of the stitch and not the hole. You don't want big gaping holes, and so you want to try to work your single crochets going through the stitches, not the holes. And that's the side of the stitches where we stitched our single crochet rows. And like right there, it's really snug, so I'm going to have to really push, and you may have to. So I've worked single crochets up the side, and it brings me to the loop. And on the loop, we're just going to place a single crochet in each of those single crochets around that loop. So there's that loop. And now we're going to just work single crochets, working back down to this corner. Again, we're working in the sides of the stitches, trying not to have to go in the holes. And of course, like I always say, you might have to from time to time, but for it to look a little bit neater and crisper, you want to try to go through the stitches, not the holes. All right, I don't want to go in that hole. That would be too big of a gap, so I'll try to go to the stitch. There we go. And once you've reached that corner of that last side, we're going to tie off. And what I like to do is go right in that first single crochet and stitch a slip stitch. Then we'll go in the next stitch and we'll pull that string to the back and we'll weave that in with our needle. I'm just going to sew that in, working one way and then going back the other way, making sure it's in there nice and tight, because this little scrubby is going to get lots of use. And there you go. There is the 6 by 6 inch scrubby. And this one is made using the sparkle scrubby. And this one is made using the polyester scrubby. So this one is the cotton scrubby with cotton yarn. We have cotton yarn with the sparkle scrubby and cotton yarn with the polyester scrubby. So there are many different ways to make the Super Scrubby. You can make it 6 inch and you can use different scrubby yarns, or you can use 2 strands of cotton and you can make it bigger. And you can use 2 strands of cotton or a strand of cotton and a strand of any of the scrubby yarns to make any size scrubby that you need.